Guess who's back, 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 back again, again. Hey, what's up, Spencer? My name is everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to be doing my monthly reading wrap-up, meaning that I am going to be going over all of the books that I read in the month of May, which actually wasn't really a lot. I kind of really fell behind this month. I only have 9 books that I read, but we're still going to talk about them and go over them and all of my thoughts and opinions about them so far. Like, I haven't finished reading them. All of my thoughts in general. If you've read any of these books, definitely let me know in the comments down below. I love when people have like completely different opinions than me on books. That's the number one thing that I love about books, is something that can be the worst book to me, can be someone else's favorite book in the entire world. The first book that I read this month was In the Shadow of Man by Jane Goodall. I actually picked this one up because her 90th birthday was on April 3rd. Her birthday is the day after mine. I didn't know that, but because it was her birthday, I decided that it would be good to honor her by reading this book. This is Jane's kind of autobiography. I don't know if it really counts as a biography because it's about her, but it's also a lot about the chimpanzees that she's studying. Anyway, it's about how she first got into studying chimpanzees and how she was one of the very first people to study them and look into them, and how people didn't really think it was valuable to put time and attention into these animals. I gave this book 3.75 stars. I found that it was kind of slow at first because, you know, she's kind of just sitting in trees staring at leaves for a long time, so that's kind of boring. But once you get through the halfway point, she's now become really close to the chimpanzees that she's studying, and she's telling a lot more intricate stories about what's going on because she knows who the different people are. She understands how they relate to one another. You know, she knows what their relationships are, like who's a mom, who are siblings, things like that. One of the things that I did notice about this book and that I liked about it is that a lot of times people will argue for nature and saying that that's the reason why we need to have really strict gender and sexuality roles, but this shows that that's absolutely not true, especially because this was written like back in the 70s. So it's way before the time in which we're having the discourse that we have now. So there are definitely times in which she shows that just because you are a girl chimpanzee who has given birth to babies does not mean that you are automatically going to be a good mother, or that you're going to have this natural mother instinct. Like, there was one who just did not give a shit about her babies at all, and they would frequently die because of the lack of attention that she gave to them. While on the other hand, a small baby lost its mother, and so the older brother ended up taking on the parenting role and raising this child. So clearly, these types of things are more like guidelines, not rules. It's good for us to have like general categories for things to fall into so that things can be organized. But when it comes down to it, individuals should step up and into these places in which things are needed. So it isn't necessarily like hard and fast rules. It's whatever is working best for the community at the time. The next book that I read was Heartstopper Volume 5 by Alice Oseman. This is obviously the 5th book in the series. There is one more book that is going to come out after this that I am very excited for, but also really sad for, because I've absolutely fallen in love with this series and I do not want it to end. This follows Charlie and Nick. They are high schoolers in England, and they go to a all-boys school, and they end up falling in love and having a relationship. And, you know, it just goes through all of the regular romance things that go on, you know, trying to navigate being in a relationship and what you want to do, and like how to talk to other people about your relationship, while also having the additional barrier of being gay and having like previously been made fun of for that. This book is super cute and really sweet, and I highly recommend it, but also it is tough to read through volume 4 because volume 4 goes very hard into mental health and eating disorders. And I think that that's something to be aware of going in because the first 3 books are super cutesy. And then the 4th book takes a hard turn, which is why it took me so long to get to volume 5. Because even though I super loved it, I was also like really anxious about how much mental health and eating disorder stuff was going to be going on in there. And volume 5 goes back into kind of being more cutesy and adorable. That stuff is still there, but it is getting better. And I just really love how Charlie and Nick support each other and care about each other. And it's super cute. And I think that everybody should read this series. The next book that I read is The Daughter of Dr. Moreau by Silvia Moreno Garcia, and I gave this book 1 star. This book is about a girl named Carlotta, where she is the daughter of Dr. Moreau. Like, whoa, oh my God, who could have guessed that? And Dr. Moreau is this scientist who has created these kind of hybrids where he's mixed together animal and human genes and have created these hybrid creatures that he is supposed to be giving his benefactors so that they can work in the fields and kind of be more slave labor. And this book focuses on when the benefactor's son shows up and is starting to like look around the compound and stuff, and Carlotta kind of like falls in love with him and all sorts of stuff. The reason why I gave this book 1 star is because Silvia Moreno Garcia likes to introduce dark gothic topics and then not do anything with them. Please tell me, what is the point of having this concept of creating these hybrids expressly so that they can become slaves and then like not do that? The Doctor doesn't do that. He creates all of these hybrids and then refuses to let them go and like do the work that they were created to do. This book doesn't delve into like different ethic topics. It doesn't go over the controversy of clones and mixing together different genes and stuff like that. It introduces that stuff and then doesn't do anything with it. The majority of this book is about Carlotta falling in love with the benefactor's son and thinking about marrying him, while all the other people in this book are dealing with like actual serious problems. Like the hybrids are trying to leave so that they can have their own independent lives and not be forced to do all of this stuff. But Carlotta doesn't really care. She only cares about getting married, I guess. And it's very difficult for me to care about anything that she has going on when there are much more serious topics at hand that we are just refusing to do anything about for some reason. Honestly, the entire time that I was reading this, I was like, man, I wish I was reading House of the Scorpion by Nancy Farmer instead, because that has all of the elements introduced in this book in that one, but it actually does stuff with it. So I don't think that that's really good if while somebody is reading your book, they wish that they were reading another book because the other book did it better. I have like some other Silvia Moreno Garcia stuff on my TBR, like Silver Nitrate, I believe, and I'm considering taking it off after this because of how incredibly disappointing and boring I found this story to be. Next up, we have the book Loteria by Carla Arenas Valenti. This book follows our main character, Clara, who is a 10-year-old girl around there. I'm not 100% sure. She lives in a small village with her family, and she unknowingly is having her life played with. The mystical creatures, characters, life and death are playing the game Loteria, and it is her life that is in the balance. If one of them wins, then she will be able to live a full and happy life, whereas if the other one wins, then she will be taken from the world. And kind of the entire point of this story is to go over, like, do we have free will? What exactly does free will mean? Do we actually have the ability to make choices, or is everything technically all predetermined for us? I gave this book 3.5 stars because while I did enjoy it, I also felt like it was kind of forgettable a bit. I don't really remember much about this story at all, except for this one scene where a child was playing with a bow and arrow set, and the wind just took the arrow and straight up just murdered somebody with it. Like, that was crazy and kind of a little out of nowhere. I did like all of the conversation around what exactly constitutes free will and stuff like that, because I am of the belief that we 50-50 have free will. I do think that you have the ability to make choices and decide where your life is going to go, but I also believe that it's not possible for just anything to happen. We are certain people who have certain morals and values and stuff like that, and so there are some possibilities that are just not really something that is going to be realistic. Like, do I think that somebody who has lived like a good plain life is just going to randomly wake up tomorrow and just like kill somebody? Probably not. That's a reality that is not really going to happen, because this is just not who you are as a person. Like, there are certain things that people are definitely going to do because that's who they are, and certain things that they're definitely not going to do because that's who they are. But there are still choices that are to be made within the categories of things that we can and will do. I hope that that makes sense. The next book that I read was The Deep Sky by Yume Kitase, and I gave this book 2 stars. This book follows our main character, Asuka, as she is on a interplanetary journey to travel to the next Earth-like planet to begin colonization on that planet, because, you know, the world is going to shit. Everybody is fighting. Everybody is dying because of global warming and stuff like that. I mainly gave this book 2 stars because there are so many things about this story that on the surface, it seems like a cool idea, but once you actually start thinking about it and the way that things would work, it totally falls apart. For example, a big part of the plot is that all 80 crew members are all AFAB. They are all assigned female at birth, and they are all fully expected to get pregnant and carry a baby to term before they even get to this new planet. Because for some reason, they're doing this thing where they haven't even colonized this new planet yet, and we're still pushing for a whole bunch of breeding, which I'm not really sure why we're doing that. I would think that first you would want to establish the colony and establish that this place is somewhere that you can live and you have some sort of community set up before you would try and give birth and stuff like that. And the explanation that the author gave was that the engineers wanted them to give birth in space and get the majority of like the hard child rearing out of the way before they got to the planet, which I don't think that that would be a thing, purely due to the fact that a pregnancy is an extremely high risk procedure. I don't think that a lot of people realize that like the damage that a pregnancy giving birth does to the body is actually on the same level as going through a moderate car accident. Like, it's a very dangerous thing to go through, and I can only imagine how much more dangerous it would be to do it in space with people who are not like medically certified gynecologists, are not people who have, you know, worked in birthing wards and have experience with all of these types of things. To force all 80 of your crew to go through that seems like a really, really bad idea, because people are probably going to, unfortunately, die during this procedure. Like, it's pretty easy to die during childbirth and have complications happen. So that just doesn't seem like a really good idea. I mean, we don't even let scientists go to Antarctica with their appendix in because the risk of it getting infected and needing to have it come out is too high, and it's too dangerous to even risk that. I can't imagine that people would argue that it would be a good idea to have everybody on the space crew get pregnant and give birth before you even reach the planet. So basically, you're making it so that your mission is going to fail before you even get there, because You're making all of these people go through stuff that could potentially injure or kill them. Also, the concept of just having an entirely AFAB crew. I like that concept on the surface because that's an interesting thing, but once you think about it, doesn't super make sense because they have a whole entire refrigerator filled with sperm that they have collected from all sorts of people, and they have it set up so that it's like random. You can't choose who you get to be impregnated by. And that doesn't seem like a super good idea because a lot of stuff about space exploration and space journeys is that you have to plan for every single contingency. And if a large portion of the mission is to breed and get pregnant and give birth, only sending a refrigerator full of sperm does not sound like a good idea because it would be super easy for something to go wrong and all of those samples to go bad. And then what do? Then you're SOL. I can't imagine that they wouldn't send somebody who can naturally make sperm in case something happens to this refrigerator filled with 1,000 or whatever samples, because it would be super easy for something like that to happen. Like, you have to anticipate things that might go wrong and build in like little plans just in case it does, so that your mission will still succeed even if there's a bump along the way. So yeah, those are my main thoughts about it. Is I like the concept of having an entirely AFAB space crew on the surface, but once you actually start to know what their mission is and what they're supposed to be doing, it doesn't really seem like that would be the way that people would do things, you know? Next up, we have Dead Dead Girls by Nekesa Afia, and I gave this book 2.5 stars. This book takes place in 1926 Harlem, and our main character is a Black woman named Louise Lloyd. And one day she finds a dead body in front of the cafe that she works at, and she teams up with the police force in order to try and solve the murder, because there is a serial killer who is abducting and killing young Black women. And as a Black woman, she herself can go into places and talk to people who the white male police officers obviously don't have access to, and people don't want to talk to them. So she is teaming up with the police to try and solve who the serial killer is. This was a really interesting story, and I liked a lot of what was going on, except the author has a really bad habit of telling you things like way before you need to know them. The book opens with her being, the main character being 15 years old and getting abducted and nearly killed along with a group of other girls, but she's able to like stab the guy to death, and she becomes like kind of famous because she killed and escaped and saved all of these girls, which is something that is interesting, but also something that I wish had been held onto and was something that the author had hinted about, and then we could have learned about this traumatic experience that the main character went through. The author also kind of tells you who the killer is, like pretty early on in the book, by being like, oh, the main character is going to regret not being more suspicious of this person in the future. And I'm just like, why would you say that? That just ruins the entire book. Like, now I know who it is. Like, why would you say that? And when it comes down to who actually killed these girls, it didn't seem like the author put any time or effort into trying to sprinkle in like clues about who this person is going to be beforehand. It really felt like she just kind of picked a character, and that guy happened to be the killer. But the main character just kind of was like, oh, it must be this guy. And she somehow was right about it, even though we didn't really have any clues. And the author didn't go into any reason about why he's serial killing all of these Black women. He just is, I guess. I don't know. This is the first book in a series, and I'm not gonna really go further into the series, unfortunately, because I don't like it when the author can't properly sprinkle things throughout with mystery. That's kind of what you're supposed to do, is you're supposed to put in all of these clues that at the end it all comes together. There wasn't any of that in this. It was kind of really basic and straightforward. The next book that I read was Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister, and I gave this book 2 stars. This book is about a woman who witnesses her son like brutally stabbing a man to death outside of their house. And then her son is obviously arrested and taken to jail for it. And she comes home, she's devastated, she goes to bed. When she wakes up the next day, she finds that she is in the day before the murder happened. And she's trying to like figure out what's going on. And every day that she wakes up, she's in the day before. So she's slowly traveling back through time and she's trying to find all of these clues to piece together why her son killed this guy, who this guy was, like all of the things behind that. The main reason why I gave this book 2 stars is because everything that the main character was worried about felt like things that any middle-class white woman would be worried about after watching too much Dr. Phil. The main character is freaking out because she thinks that her super sweet and smart son, who would never do this, he only fell into a bad crowd because he's dating the wrong girl and playing too many violent video games. And then she's also having like a whole entire meltdown because she finds a knife in his backpack. And like, I understand that he stabbed a guy to death, but also like, your kitchen is full of knives. Like, why are you so like, oh my God, my son has a knife? Like, yeah, it's super easy to get a knife. Why did he even buy a knife when he could have just walked over and gotten a steak knife from the kitchen? Like, as an American, where we have a lot of guns and stuff like that, like, I don't know, it just seems a little silly for her to be freaking out over something that, like, literally right here, within reaching distance, I have a knife. So, like, I don't know. But by the time I got to the end of the book, I was kind of confused because we had traveled so far back in time that we had kind of lost the thread of what the son was doing. And I still don't really understand why he did that. Like, I understand that the person who he killed was a bad guy, obviously, but I still don't fully understand, like, what drove the son to the point that he felt that he needed to flat out kill this guy instead of doing, I don't know, like anything else about it. The next book that I read is Dark Corners by Megan Golden. This is the second book in a series following a woman who is a famous true crime podcaster, and it's kind of about her investigating and creating this podcast series. And this book specifically focuses on Rachel getting called down to Florida by the FBI because her name has been brought up in association to a serial killer who has supposedly abducted and killed 6 women. He says that he is innocent, and Rachel now needs to figure out who really did it before she herself is potentially next. I really like a lot of the things that Megan Golden has written. I've read almost everything that she has done so far. She's only done 3 or 4 books, I think. And I have found them all to be very enjoyable, including this one. If you're interested in reading this series, I highly suggest that you do audiobook because part of the chapters are set up to kind of be podcasty. So those chapters are very nice to be able to listen to because they put in the effort of hiring different voice actors and editing in like background sounds. So it sounds a lot more like a podcast before going back to like the regular chapters where it's kind of more like a book. I think Megan Golden is pretty good at like setting up a lot of things and putting the clues throughout and weaving everything in. But I do wish that she had gone a little bit more into the psyche of the killer. I really like to explore what are all of the catalyst events that leads up to somebody becoming not just a killer, but a serial killer, because that's a pretty extreme thing to go to. And Megan Golden gave like a little reason why, but kind of went more into the like, oh, well, he's a bad guy. So like, you know, that's what bad guys do. And I did feel like the commentary that was happening on influencers was a little bit too much. I do agree that there is a level of like fakeness that comes from popular influencers, but the level that she was trying to push, I don't think is real. Like, yes, people definitely like set up their food and like spend time like taking pictures of their food and stuff like that, but like the people who do that like definitely eat their food after. Like, I don't know why people think that influencers take pictures of their food and then immediately throw the entire thing away. Like, I genuinely do not think that influencers do stuff like that. I'm pretty sure that after they take pictures of their food, they do in fact eat it. So yeah, that was kind of the reason why I didn't give this book a full 5 stars, even though I really did enjoy it. And anything else that Megan Golden like puts out in the future, I'm definitely going to be picking up. All right, and the last book that I read in May was The First Bright Thing by J.R. Dawson, and I gave this book 5 stars. This book follows the ringmaster who has a magical, fantastical circus that travels around the country and kind of shows visions to different people to try and help them have a new view on life. However, the ringmaster, all of the people in the circus have these kind of magical powers called a spark, and the ringmaster gets kind of, not visions because she can travel through time, so she sees a terrible future filled with war and filled with all of her loved ones dying, so she is desperately trying to change the future so that this doesn't happen, while also being on the run from the circus king, who is a evil, competing circus that like does a lot of like really dark stuff and is trying to take down the ringmaster. I absolutely loved this book. This was so well written. I loved all of the characters. I loved all of the commentary that was going on throughout this. There was a really hard metaphor about like how difficult it is to be able to like leave abusive relationships that I think was really well done. I actually listened to this entire audiobook in one sitting. It was really great. I didn't want to stop listening to it because it was so compelling and so good. If you are somebody who likes Night Circus or Caraval, then you will probably also enjoy this one because there are so many fantastical elements, but there are also a lot of like really dark themes and really strong characters and lots of different queer relationships throughout. And I just, oh my goodness, I absolutely love this. This is a debut book from this author. My friend actually gave this to me because she is friends with this author, and this is the first like real book that this person has put out, and I am definitely looking forward to whatever else they may publish in the future because this was so good. I can't wait to see what else they're going to be writing. All right, so that is everything that I read in the month of May. Like I said earlier, let me know your comments down below if you have read any of these books. And if you like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more like it. I also am doing kind of more with social media. I created my own website because I really like doing a lot of art and a lot of writing and just creating so many different things. So if you are interested in seeing some of the other things that I have been creating and other projects that I have going on in the future, definitely check out my website. But besides that, thank you so much for sticking around until the end of the video. I really enjoyed having you here, and make sure that you stay safe and have a fantastic day. Bye.